Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that just has to kill for 52 weeks in a row and then do it again next year. It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most Saturday mornings or available to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks.
Lucy.
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and when he's being funny, you'll know it. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
Ahoy!
Each week we'll chat about movies, television, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week. He's currently dressed as a cool youth pastor. It's John Paula.
Hey, hello, how are you?
Doing
good to be back. Excited, certainly, to talk about one of tonight's films. I'm interested to talk about the other one, but I might be a little interested in Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's a big one, guys. We are going to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of that soon enough. We're also going to be doing Being the Ricardos, Aaron Sorkin's new film, and chat a little bit about that, and then best ever crossover movies for our best ever challenge, and of course some buried treasure as well. And maybe we'll just talk about this now before we actually get into the review proper with Spider-Man No Way Home. Clearly there will be a Sift spoil on this.
What?
Clearly we will need to talk some spoilers.
I don't understand.
and in fact, so much so that the actual episode of Sif Pop might be shorter than you expect. And then
I was going to say, this is going to be actually a pretty
30-minute
short.
like spoiler.
I think we honestly need to do like 5 minutes now and then 30 minutes later, because there's too much. And I wrote a long review. I stayed up last night to actually kind of get my thoughts on paper, posted them on my letterbox, 900 words, which is definitely a longer review for me. And I could have done another 900 had I opened myself up to spoilers. And I was just trying to, I basically can only describe like the first 30 minutes of the film. And those first 30 minutes are certainly interesting and exciting and dynamic but yeah, well, let's talk about it.
All right, so we're gonna get into it. Let's kick it off with some thoughts on Spider-Man: No Way Home. Peter Parker is unmasked and no longer able to separate his normal life from the high stakes of being a superhero. When he asks for help from Doctor Strange, the stakes become even more dangerous, forcing him to discover what it truly means to be Spider-Man. In addition to being spoiler-free, I will define, a little bit at least attempt, to define what that means for us. We are not considering spoilers, anything that occurs on the poster or in the trailer. And you know me, I don't watch trailers, so I'm not necessarily aware of that. But I do know that the villains have been a known part of what is going on in Spider-Man No Way Home. We will not be afraid to talk about those. John, any questions?
So I broke my no trailers pledge for this one because I knew that I knew it would be unavoidable to go into this truly blind. So I'm like, let's just watch it once so I won't be so surprised when Doc Ock shows up. Like, all right, get that out of the way. But I'm curious, Aaron, it sounds like from your reaction, you did not see the trailer.
I did not.
You probably had heard something. Like, how much of this did you know about when you sat down to see it?
Okay, look, so this is a very interesting situation, and I do want to be careful with spoilers because I was just talking with somebody who is an MCU fan, Marvel fan, who did not even know the conceit of this movie and was going to sit, down to, and I told them, I said, watch this as soon as you can, or you will know a lot of things very, very soon. So I do want to be careful, but I will say I was aware of the conceit of the film. Just because I'm paying enough attention to different things. Also, the TV shows. This person doesn't watch the TV shows. The TV shows have dealt with kind of where we're headed in the Marvel universe, those kind of things. So I was aware enough to know that we were dealing with, like our BEC, some crossover stuff that was going to be happening. I think the best spoilery way to say that. Because of that, and also because I had seen, a poster or art that kind of with Doc Ock's arms, like I knew we were dealing with villains that were coming in. I had some other assumptions I made. Those assumptions turned out to be correct. I don't think I have to detail that at all. But many of my assumptions that, again, we won't talk about till the Sif spoil, turned out not to be correct. And so it'll be interesting to have those conversations. But yes, that kind of is my mindset going in. Was I hadn't seen any of the visuals from the movie, but I did know some things that I was probably in store for. So yeah, lots of that discussion to come later. For right now, though, let's do a simple liked it, loved it, disliked it, hated it, or it was just okay, and then we'll talk in some broad strokes. John, why don't you kick us off? What do you think?
What do you think I thought? I loved it so damn much. This movie just tickled me pink.
I think we all are in the same boat.
Oh my gosh. I haven't had this much fun since End Game, and that was like 2.5 years ago now. It was just, it was a blast.
Andrew?
Yeah, loved it.
Yeah,
Beyond loved it. Yeah.
Me too. It's going to be a love fest. It's just so fun. I think one thing I've said to people, and again, I don't think this is too spoilery, I should stop being surprised that Marvel knows how to play with their toys so well.
Yeah, right?
There's part of me going into this kind of assuming where we were headed and some of the things that might be happening. There's like, you can't do that. How are you going to pull that off? That doesn't, that's going to be cheap. It's not going to make any sense, whatever.
I described it as a unicorn event, like to make this happen from across different franchises and different decades and different publishing and companies. It is amazing that it all came together as well as it did, and it hit all of the right notes and all of like the satisfying beats we wanted it to. And I shouldn't be surprised, but I was surprised. Like, wow, they really nailed this. This could have been bungled so badly. It really could have been so disappointing.
Andrew, talk a little bit about in general terms, like, about your love for this movie.
I was surprised of the emotional range that this movie took me on, the emotional roller coaster. I'll just say this up front. Tom Holland might give what I would put in the top 3 performances ever put on any Marvel movie ever.
Wow.
Up there with Josh Brolin and Thanos and Michael B. Jordan for Killmonger. I mean, I think Tom Holland's performance in this movie would cement him in that conversation of like best performances that the MCU has ever brought forth.
I don't disagree. It was a career best from Tom, who's always done good work since he was a kid, and probably the best the MCU has seen in a very long time.
Absolutely. The going back to the emotional range, I think the thing that I took from this movie, and it's been a theme not only from the MCU Spider-Man, but going all the way back to like I forgot his name, Tobey Maguire one's like the great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah,
this movie kind of turns that notion on its head a little bit to where it's not only that, but it's also great power. With great power comes great pain. With great power comes great sacrifice.
Another way I saw it phrased was that you have a gift, so you should help people no matter what. And the sort of the thematic underpinning of this film was you have a gift and you should help people even if they're bad. And that I thought was really interesting and dynamic, that the conceit that you spoke of, Aaron, in this film is that Spider-Man is trying to help people that don't necessarily deserve it. And it's like, well, why? Why doesn't he just doom these villains of, Christmas pasts? It's not his problem, but it becomes his problem because he's a character that we relate to for explicitly that reason. He cares, and he doesn't want to do any harm if he can help it. And he wants to try to save everybody, even if they're punching him in the face while he does it. And there's something really, really endearing about that.
Endearing and fascinating. It is there. There are two wires that Aaron is walking as he speaks in third person about himself. One is the wire of spoilers. The other is the wire of turning into the youth pastor and talking about how biblical this movie is about loving your enemy and, the idea of, what's it mean to deserve love? What does it, do any of us actually deserve it? And like, it's just really interesting to watch this movie dig into these themes that were so central to my faith growing up and just go, okay, what does this look like in a superhero context where we're so used to the idea of good guy, bad guy, good guy beats bad guy, sometimes has to kill him and get rid of, as opposed to good guy, bad guy. Hey, bad guy, let's talk about, how we can help you.
Right.
It's incredible. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it. It's just in the fact that the theme was so central and core and also completely served by everything that was going on. And I guess that's where I'll focus, my first big part of why I love this is the fan service. And I'm going to use fan service as a stand-in basically for all the spoilers we can't tell you. So if you've seen the movie, when I say fan service, all the things I'm talking about if you've seen the movie, right? So the fan service is in general can be a fun thing if it doesn't distract from the story or characters, right? It can be an absolutely genius next level thing when it actually informs the story and the characters.
Yeah, that was the biggest sort of takeaway for me. My one-line review was fan service in service of a really focused plot. And I was so surprised and I was so impressed that this fan service, they were bringing in these other characters and they were making these callbacks and references, but it had a very specific point that made everything better. Even older movies are now strengthened by virtue of what they're doing in this one.
Yeah. And the fan service here is deep. It's beautiful. It's intricate. It's emotional. I kid you not. I wept a couple times during this movie about things. And we'll get more into that in spoilers about the specific instances. But just, it all tying back to the idea of grace and love and sacrifice and what that means and how far do you truly take that? I just thought was incredible stuff. Other general positives that you guys had?
So like you said earlier, we can, if they're on the poster, we can talk about them.
Yes.
So two people that were brought back, I thought really elevated their performance, or it was just they were just as perfect as they were initially. And that's Alfred Molina and
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe,
thank you. Yeah. Alfred Molina is just as amazing as he was in the Spider-Man 2. And for Willem Dafoe, it's interesting because I went back, not recently, but like within the last couple of years, I went back and I watched the original Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire.
Oh, I binged them all the last 2 weeks, and that was a great decision.
Oh, really?
I would recommend anyone who hasn't seen this somehow and you're listening to this podcast, rewatch every film.
Yeah.
All the Spider-Man ones, anyway.
Well, that first Sam Raimi one is so comic booky.
Yes. I love Raimi's decisions in that.
And it serves that style well, but I was curious as to how that performance, that exaggerated performance was going to lend itself to a movie which is, when I say more grounded in reality, I don't mean the world itself, but the performances. They feel like real emotions that people in the MCU are portraying here. So I was not worried, but I was curious about Willem Dafoe's character. I think the performance he gives in this is so terrifying and haunting that it made me wonder what a movie with Tobey Maguire back in 2001 would look like, if that's the theme, the darkness that they went with initially. It's another Elseworld kind of thing that I'm curious about, because it's very almost slapsticky, that Sam Raimi one, intentionally. And a slapsticky may not be the best
no, but
term
I
to
get what
use.
you're saying. It does have sort of a cartoon
exactly
flair to it.
But the way that Willem Dafoe transforms in this movie, that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, I forgot about that, and I'm like,
he's frightening. When he just when his smile just like upturns a little bit, it's like, oh shoot, something's about to go down. He just turned evil.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating. We're 27 movies deep now into the MCU, and Willem Dafoe in what is part of a 5-part villain ensemble here, not only steals the show in this picture, but he might be one of the best villains in the entire MCU, and he's just calling back a performance from 19 years ago. He's that good.
Yeah, but that's my thing. Is he really calling back a performance? He's calling back a character, but I think the performance is all
that's
brand
probably
new.
a better way to put it. But yeah, he's building on what he already did and improving on it. And because we've already gone through, this is why I think one of the big strengths of No Way Home and why the sort of overcrowded ensemble works really well is we don't waste any time figuring out how did they get their powers, why did they turn evil, what was their motivation before they turned evil, like what are they trying to do?
Cemented.
And like we already know that, so John Watts is able to go right to basically let's start paying stuff off, let's call back memes, let's call back jokes, let's throw in cameos, and they're immediately able to pay off this stuff. That had me howling. I was just cheering and applauding. This is such a fun movie because you just get to pay stuff off. All the setups is done. All the boring origin story work we figured out for every one of these characters.
Yeah. Let's talk negatives. I have one, and it really is my only negative, but it's a fairly big one for me. The Doctor Strange of it all didn't necessarily work for me in this, and I mean that in a couple ways. Number one, I feel like they do some things with Doctor Strange here that change my perception of him in large ways, both of his characteristics as well as his abilities. And I don't necessarily want to go too much further into that other than to say I felt like he, more than any other piece of this movie, fan service or otherwise, was a story cog crafted to do a certain thing. And I think that does come through in this movie sometimes. And movies have to have story cogs. It's just unfortunate when you're the MCU that those cogs have to be such big players in your overall,
I think a word that I would use to describe him in this film is clumsy and uncharacteristically so.
Exactly.
It's like he is supposed to be, the greatest wizard on the planet, and yet the entire, start plot of this movie is that he screws up. And it's like, well, how did you when you're toying with things that could potentially open up a tear in the multiverse, you think you'd be a little more cautious than, let's just give it a wing. And that didn't seem to track with what we know about his character in the last, 4 appearances of his. Yes. And then there are other moments where he seems to uncharacteristically portray a lot of sympathy for Peter Parker. And it's like, does he even really know this kid outside of like that one interaction they had in the Infinity War movie? Like it seems some of that didn't track for me, that like, oh, okay, I get that he cares about his colleague from the Avengers, but would he really be like sad or sympathetic towards him? Because he seems kind of like a jerk. Dr. Strange, Stephen has always been kind of a jerky guy who doesn't seem like he cares about anybody else. And I think maybe we could have used his second movie somewhere in here that kind of redefines who he is post End Game. Because this character doesn't feel like who I remember from his movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. Yeah. Did you guys have any other Andrew, you said you had a couple?
Yeah, actually, it's going to performances. I'm going to go with Thomas Hayden Church and Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx, less so for his performance as opposed to him just being a totally different person than who he portrayed in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like, he was
Max Dillon's unrecognizable. Electro is kind of the same, but Max Dillon looks completely different.
Not only is his character, styled different, but I think his personality is totally different too. Like it was so questionable. Like you're not. I mean, if anything, you're just being Jamie Foxx here. You're being cool and charismatic and stuff, and you have some. Fair. You got some swag to you, and that's not who you were at all. And as for Thomas Hayden Church, I think he's just as forgettable in this movie as he was in the Amazing Spider-Man, or it was Spider-Man 3, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
I think it was 3.
I could have done without Hayden Church, if I'm being honest. He didn't really add anything of value.
But I don't know that the movie could have done without him. What the movie is trying to do needs him. I think.
So I think visually, Sandman is a very interesting villain because he can take up the whole screen. He can kind of consume people, and what you can do with that sort of floating amorphous blob of sand is really interesting from a fight choreography and blocking perspective, because it can just kind of like, all right, now the Sandman just eats the entire scaffolding that he's standing on. That works well when they need it to. But as a character, Flint Marko was like, all right, whatever. Why is he back? I thought we wrapped his arc. He had kind of a happy ending. The rest of these guys are sort of unresolved ghosts of the past, and they're looking for their unfinished business. It felt like a good Are You Afraid of the Dark episode in that respect. That like the ghosts are haunting this franchise because they have unfinished business, and you have to put it right, Spider-Man. But with Flint Marko, it's like I thought he was all set.
Well,
so I don't really know what.
We do get a cathartic moment with him, as far as without spoiling anything towards the end. Like, it's not like he is left out of the. I'm trying to think how to non-spoilery say this, but it's not like he's left out of the climax of the film.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. I do agree that he does have at least a conclusion here. But I felt like he already kind of had one. Of the 5 that returned, he felt to me like the least necessary.
Yeah. But it didn't, followed very closely by Lizard.
Yeah, but it did not detract for me at all. Because Molina and Dafoe are doing such great scenery chewing in all the same scenes. It didn't care. I didn't matter at all.
Yeah. I think we can end there, other than for Andrew to tell you how many post-credit scenes there are.
There's one post-credit scene and then a trailer.
Yeah.
Did you guys, I know you guys are the zero frame pledgers, which is,
I just watched it. It was part of the movie.
Did you guys get tricked into watching a trailer?
I got tricked for about 5 seconds, and I walked out, and I was kind of angry. I was just like, look, if you're going to do a teaser scene, fine. And if that teaser scene happens to be in the next movie as well, okay, that's cool. But if you're going to just show me a trailer, like that was really frustrating to me.
Well,
so
you're one of 15 people in the world who has the zero frame pledge. So
we are. There
are dozens of
you are
us.
Legion.
We are Legion.
You are Legion. You are many.
I will just tell you, I tweeted immediately to warn my fellow, no trailer people, and
that's why I'm actually bringing it up here in the show, because if anything, that I want to make sure I say that now, as opposed to in spoilers where we talk about everything else.
That's a good point, actually.
So
be warned, there is one post-credit scene and then a trailer at the very end.
I was also mad because I had to go to the bathroom so bad by the end of that movie,
So
and I waited another 5 minutes for a movie trailer. It's just like,
I went to the bathroom and then came back.
Yeah, I think
after
you were
the
smart.
first,
I think you were smart.
the first, because they're not going to do like 50. It's not Guardians of the Galaxy 2 where they do like 4,000 mid-credit scenes.
Yeah. I will say, I will. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say one more positive we haven't touched on is I felt the action sequences in this were really well photographed in a way that I think we saw a bit in Shang-Chi, but we had longer lenses, longer takes. It seemed like better choreographed and well-blocked action. There's a sequence on a highway with Doc Ock that I think geographically made a lot of sense in a way that Marvel movies are far too frequently they kind of gloss over it, and they just like, let's just throw a bunch of stuff, and then they fight and they punch and it's over. It's like, but this, I actually understood the sort of the beginning, the middle, and the end, where the things were happening, what the tension was, what was at stake. And that scene, I think, worked really well because of it. So yeah, I love seeing action in these movies, especially when you can follow it and it makes sense, even if you have the sound off.
I was just going to say that for the most part, when I talked about how well the fan service is done here, there are two examples of shallow fan service in this movie that I will specify in spoilers, but there
that
were
you didn't appreciate, or
yeah, well, I mean, I could they were fine, they were fun, they didn't detract for me because I got them. But I can see them detracting for somebody else who may not have understood them. They were just shallow enough that they didn't add a lot to it, and I will detail those in spoilers. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't negatively impact the movie at all. I just thought I would mention for somebody who's saying, well, not all the fan service was, deep and meaningful. No, I hear you. I know there were a couple moments. One of them wasn't even in the movie proper, so that one almost doesn't count. But yeah, well, we can talk about those in spoilers.
Interested to hear what those moments are.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
It's going to be a long
tease.
spoiler cast.
All right,
Let's
well,
just say
we should
that.
move on then. We should move on then. Let's talk about Being the Ricardos.
Whiplash here.
The movie follows Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz as they face a crisis that could end their careers and another that could end their marriage. Being Ricardos stars Javier Bardem as Desi Arnaz, Nicole Kidman as Lucille Ball. You've got J.K. Simmons in there as William Frawley, and Nina Arianda as Vivian Vance, as well as some other people show up that you might know. What do you guys think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? Andrew, kick us off on this one.
I loved it.
Nice. Yeah. I should have mentioned in my intro, written and directed by Aaron Sorkin.
Oh yeah.
So his third directorial feature after Chicago 7 and I just blanked.
Molly's Game.
That's it.
Molly's Game. John, what about you?
I really liked it.
So high side, I liked it.
Yeah.
I'm bordering on high side, I liked it. Low side, I've loved it. I think I'm landing on high side, I've liked it. I think this is a really fun.
It's a good week.
Good movie. Yeah, good week for movies we're discussing. Although, yeah, you're not wrong, John. A little bit of whiplash.
I just meant in terms of the styles, going from the $200 million, extravagant fan service, crowd-pleasing blockbuster to this almost like two.
Honestly, I thought you were making a J.K. Simmons joke.
Oh, that works too. He's in all three of those.
He's in all three. Yeah.
He's in Spider-Man. He's in this.
Yeah.
In hindsight, he is making a J.K. Simmons joke. Andrew, why don't you kick us off, since it sounds like you loved it the most? Tell us some things you loved about it.
Well, I got to preface up front. I have seen every single episode of I Love Lucy. So I don't know if my love for the show, was just heightened and elevated. Like, I know it's not, a documentary by any means, but getting that behind the scenes, what it might have been like, really on the set and stuff like that. I thought it was fascinating. I will say that I thought casting was interesting. I think that Javier Bardem gave a great performance in this movie. He looks and acts nothing like Desi Arnaz.
Nothing like Desi.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the same thing. Like, he's good in this, but like, he resembles Desi Arnaz
in no way, shape, or form. Yeah. Because I think he's even older than Nicole Kidman, and I think the whole joke was that Desi Arnaz is younger than Lucille Ball. And there's a joke in this movie, or not a joke, but a statement where Nicole Kidman's like, Desi Arnaz, he's not Spanish. He's never been to Spain. And I'm like, you cast a Spaniard as Desi Arnaz.
Yeah.
But I think that, again, Javier Bardem is great in this movie. I think that everybody's performance, like going down, Lucille, Desi, Vivian, William, they're all great. Everybody who was... Fred and Ethel, Ricky Ricardo, Lucille Ball, they were all great performances.
Yeah, J.K. Simmons actually was nominated for the CCA for playing the actor he's playing escapes me, but Fred.
Yeah. William Frawley was the actor's name.
Okay.
Yeah, Nicole also received a nomination for her performance too.
I was actually surprised Nina Arianda did not get as much love, because I thought her portrayal as Vivian was great. I loved the behind the scenes work with that character, and like seeing the inside, scope of like Yes, I'm supposed to be this young woman who's married to this old man who doesn't see me as beautiful, and like her struggles with the character that she's portraying and stuff like that. I was like, wow, this is fascinating, and I love the inside look into this.
Yeah, the
Mainly
inside,
that's my big takeaway from this movie is getting the behind the curtains look at what one of my favorite shows.
The inside baseball, if you
Aha.
will.
Haha.
There you go. I too loved Nina's performance in this. In fact, as much as I love Nicole Kidman, always been one of my favorites, and I do think she's great here. I think Nina is the best of our lead four, and I'm so glad to hear you say that too, Andrew.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, I also agree that the stuff that's going on with her is sometimes the most compelling stuff in the movie.
Yes.
You know, the scene where her and Lucille are talking about her character is, to me, the highlight of the film. I was moved by it. It worked for me. And there's plenty here that works. I mean, it's Sorkin, right? Like, I mean, there's, you know, we should probably talk about the Sorkin of it all. If for no other reason for me to say, like, I'm in the bag for Sorkin. Like, he just writes stuff that works for me. I watch his movies and I'm just like, yeah, say it that way. Oh, that was cool. Great scene. Oh, that's amazing.
I think something with Sorkin's work, certainly anything he's penned, is at a baseline, it's never worse than very great.
Right.
And occasionally he kind of hits it above that. But he has been, for me, the last like 4 or 5 pictures I've rated like right along that low side of loved it, high side of liked it range. Like 4 or 5 movies.
Mm-hmm.
There's not been a single movie that I felt was like best picture worthy or anything, but even the worst one is extremely entertaining.
Yeah. No, I agree. And
he's consistent in that regard.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I really enjoyed all of that stuff. Like I said, I think Nicole Kidman is doing great here. She's not doing an impersonation, you know, she's doing an impression. Which, you know, the slight differences in how people mean that can mean different things to different people. What I mean by that is she's not trying to become Lucille Ball here. She is trying to give a performance that echoes who that person was, you know, which, you know, can be an interesting distinction to make. But I think it works. You know, you just buy it. You just suspend the disbelief and you just go for it.
I think an important discussion here is that there was, for whatever reason, backlash over Kidman's casting because a lot of people felt she didn't look like Lucille. And I can see that. I can see some of that complaint, certainly. But when they put her hair up and they put her in the outfit and they shot her in black and white on that set, it was like, whoa. I feel like we're back on, you know, Nick at Night, or if you're old enough to remember the original airing of the show on CBS in the 50s, then this would be a real trip for you.
Aaron.
Which, to be clear, none of us are.
Yes.
Just to be clear.
But I think what's really important to point out is that this is not a movie about Lucy Ricardo. This is a movie about Lucille Ball. And the actress was much different than the character she portrayed on TV. On TV, she was sort of a clumsy, kind of calculating and klutz that was endearing and funny and always had like a scheme to one-up her husband. But in real life, she was like a very shrewd and smart comedic genius, for lack of a better word. And I think Nicole taps into that aspect of her persona exceptionally well. And I think if you've ever watched
the movie, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of the point of the film.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing, one of the other things I loved is how well it's portrayed. Like the idea of her creativity, the idea of her mind is given some really interesting visualizations in this.
She's constantly workshopping. She's constantly working on the next gag.
Yeah.
And that was really fun to see.
The best part about this movie for me is the fact that Nicole Kidman's performance of Lucille Ball, like you said, John, isn't showing her as Lucy Ricardo. It's showing you Lucille Ball. Behind the scenes, she is confident, smart. She's not being funny when she doesn't have to be. She's like, I know this will be funny come time to record. I'm going to tell you why it's funny. I'm not going to show you why it's funny. Listen to me, believe me, I know comedy.
Yeah.
And it's the whole movie's like that. I don't think there's really many funny moments besides J.K. Simmons doing a couple bits, but this whole movie interestingly
No,
enough,
it's a serious drama. It is like
Yeah.
definitely not a comedy at all. And I
Yeah,
think some people might have got the wrong idea about it.
yeah, exactly.
I laughed quite a bit. I thought there was like, I like that writer's room stuff, like
Yeah.
between what's her name from Arrested Development?
Aaliyah
Shawkat.
Shawkat, is it?
Yeah.
Shawkat,
In Jake Lacey,
Yeah.
their kind of repartee, and just you can tell Sorkin loves the idea of digging into a writer's room and how they talk to
Yeah.
each other and that kind of stuff. So
there's even a lot of
smiles.
walkie-talkie in this movie too.
Yeah.
I would say this is funny the same way The West Wing was funny. Like, yes, occasionally
Sure.
there were moments of levity that, because of the setting and because of the serious drama around it, when those moments land, they land harder. I would also say, to pull another television reference, if you've seen or enjoyed any part of Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, which was Aaron's, I think, third TV show after West Wing and Sports Night, this felt like a better version of that. Because Studio 60 was a make-believe show that was designed to look like SNL, but it never really existed, so people didn't really buy into it, and it's just comedy late night. I Love Lucy was watched by 60 million people a week for, whatever it was, 6 seasons. That was serious business. At least in the realm of television, I Love Lucy is as big as it gets and as important as it gets. And I think Aaron really appreciated being able to play in that sort of sandbox and like, I love writing for TV, and I love the idea of getting into the writer's room and pulling back the curtain of Hollywood. But Studio 60 only lasted for 1 season because I think that fictionalized element didn't really pull people in. This, I think, worked precisely because it was based on a real event.
Yeah.
Or an amalgamation of events repurposed into a single timeline. Because all the stuff that happens here, Lucy getting caught up in the Red Scare and the sort of infidelity at the core of their marriage and the success of the show itself, those were all issues that happened, but it was spread out over a couple seasons,
right,
a couple years.
The ending of this movie was so amazing for me. I loved the culmination of everything falling down at the same time. Like, the movie's been building up to it,
Yes.
like, are they going to, take care of one thing and then the next thing and then the next thing, No, the movie's like, no, we're going to resolve everything and now, and then it's over.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, no, I do like the resolutions in this movie and how they play out. And I mean, that's, that was actually one of my problems with Trial of Chicago 7 was some of the resolutions seemed a little sudden and weird, but here everything seems to kind of flow directly towards the outlet. So yeah,
I would say if you're not a fan of Sorkin's other projects, I don't think this one's going to win you over necessarily. I don't think so. All the same, like, really overly talky tropes are here. Characters have a tendency to explain rather than show. And everyone is so intelligently articulate, it's almost unbelievable. That being said, I think if you do like Sorkin's writing and you do like the overly articulate, which I happen to enjoy, this movie definitely works.
I think that the overly articulate element of this movie actually would make sense given the characters that are being portrayed.
Yeah, no, it definitely kind of fits for sure.
Yeah,
More like no
than
one
like,
ever stumbles. No one ever says once.
Yeah.
No one's like, wait a minute. No one has to catch their thought mid sentence like real people do. That's just
Aaron
Sorkin's
Sorkin
writing.
would never cast me in any of his movies.
Yeah, no, it's just if any character at any point just paused and said, "Do you know what I mean?" They'd be like, "Nope, get off the set. Forget it. You're never
what
going."
we do here. That's not what we do.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on Being the Ricardos?
No post-credit scene.
That is true.
I do have one final thought. It was wonderful to see Ronnie Cox on screen again. He is 83 years old. I know him as playing Captain Jellicoe on a couple episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation 30 years ago. Nice. And he's famously the bad guy in RoboCop. And he played one of the older fake documentary interviews that kind of wrapped around the picture. And I thought Ronnie retired like 10 years ago. I haven't seen him in anything in such a long time. So to see him back on screen for just a very minor role was like, oh, neat. Good for him.
Yeah.
Some nice counterintuitive casting is my final thought of Tony Hale as kind of the mean
straight
boss man. Yeah. That didn't work for me. It worked for me. I
No,
liked
he
him
did
in that role. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
Tony Hale, especially if you've seen him in Veep, he's just like this bumbling yes
or
man
Arrested
who just
Development.
and everyone just rolls over him. And in this movie, he kind of puts his foot down in one scene, and I was like, yeah, you go for it. Like,
Yeah.
I liked his
I
character.
actually really like that scene a lot.
It was good. There was a
me
lot
too.
of really good dramatic conflict that was hashed out one-on-one in those individual scenes. And the one you mentioned, Aaron, with Nicole Kidman and Nina was, I think, particularly compelling.
Imagine that. Great one-on-one hashing out of conflict in an Aaron Sorkin movie.
Just I don't believe it.
You know what? I
can't
do
believe it
have
happened.
one last thing.
One more
It'll be
thing.
my true one last thing.
Mhm.
Go and watch I Love Lucy. And try and appreciate and understand that the woman you're seeing on screen is not only the funniest female genius in my mind of all time, but also one of the funniest genius comedy minds in general. I think
I actually went
Hall-
and sought out the episode that this entire movie is sort of built around, which is Fred and Ethel have a fight.
Yeah.
It's actually from season 1. The movie pretends it's season 204.
Yeah.
But I watched a little bit of that, and I was like, this is great. This is great. And they actually get a lot of it, like the blocking, the dialogue, the way it's staged, the events that unfold. It's like they kind of faithfully recreated a lot of the elements from this 60-something-year-old episode of TV.
I forgot my big negative for the movie. just now realized I didn't say my negative.
Sure.
This movie has some time jumps around that are so confusing that I was like, wait, when is this taking place and when is this taking place? Like there are it's because everybody looks the exact same throughout different periods in time that you're like, I don't understand when this particular moment is taking place. Yeah. And that's my big negative for the movie.
I listened to a quick podcast with Aaron Sorkin being interviewed about this film, and he revealed they actually used some de-aging technology on Javier and Nicole Kidman in those flashback sequences, and I was like, I did not notice that. You did it so subtly that I didn't notice, and almost to the point, like, if I'm not noticing that there's any difference in age, what was the point, right? Because you want it to be a little bit obvious, like, oh, okay, this telegraphs this is when they first met. It's 10 years earlier. And I definitely agree with you on that one, Andrew. It was,
or save a couple $1 million on the de-aging and just say,
just give her
3 years ago.
That's it.
3 years ago, title at the bottom.
Yeah. Just give Nicole Kidman bangs, and that's how we know she's younger. The universal sign for being young is
exactly.
Bangs.
Now I'm done talking about the movie.
Okay.
All right, fair enough. That is Being the Ricardos, in theaters now and on Amazon Prime next week, I believe it drops.
Yes.
So
December
you'll be able to
21.
see it there very, very soon. Before we head into the Best Ever Challenge, just a reminder that we are so very thankful for the members of Sif Pop at Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/SifPop to check out what it's all about. We do a bonus episode for certain levels of our membership every single week. And this week we talked about the Critics' Choice Awards nominations and got a little feisty.
I was going to say some shade was thrown.
Yeah, throwing of shade, some fangs came out. It was.
How dare you not care about young actress categories?
You can check that out if you are a member, and if you are not a member and you're interested in what goes on there, just go hit up the website and check it for yourself. Starts at $3 a month, and there's all sorts of fun stuff that we do with our members. So patreon.com/SifPop, and thank you so much to those who keep us going here on the podcast and the website. So appreciate it very, very much. All right, let's move into our Best Ever Challenge. We're going to do best ever crossover movies in honor of Spider-Man No Way Home, bringing in those villains. So these are movies where universes collide in some way or another, where you're like, hey, wait, you're from two different, projects. How are you?
You're not from that thing.
You're not from that thing. You're from that other thing. So we'll go from number 5 to number 1 and just kind of talk about our choices. I'll start us off with my number 5. My number 5 is Star Trek Generations.
Trump.
This. Oh, we got it trumped. We'll talk about it here in a little bit.
John's on the show. Why are you even attempting?
Yes, it's true. It's a fair point.
I already mentioned Star Trek just a few minutes ago.
That's true. You did. Andrew, why don't you go next? What do you got?
Free Guy.
Nice.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it's mainly the movie did come out this year. Can we do spoilers and stuff on it, or
what you're going to talk about? I would not really consider a big spoiler. It's a cameo.
Yeah,
I'll allow it.
It's just, I mean, I don't think we have to say anything other than, Disney owns everything, and so now they're putting it in their movies. You know what I mean? Like,
but this
just
is
think
one of
of
those
the things
movies
that
that
Disney owns, and you can imagine what's crossed over here.
But initially, this was a Fox film. I think this is one of those,
like
one of the final films that Fox was doing before the integration of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it was before the final purchase. Even I think this movie was in development.
Yeah.
But at the end of this movie, we get some Marvel cameos and some, and it's probably my favorite bit of the whole movie. It's a simple bit, but it's just so great. And
it's like a 2-second cutaway, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that was so great.
Yeah,
it's completely unnecessary, but it's the kind of little cherry you can just drop in with like a second shoot late in post-production, and it adds so much to just the enjoyment.
Exactly.
So philosophically here, is this actually a crossover between different movies, or is it a crossover between fake and real reality?
I think it's the latter.
Right, yeah. Isn't it interesting to think? Because you think of those things as but in here they're not movies. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's I don't know. It's one of those interesting things, but yeah, it's
no, I think what you mean is in this movie, it's not an unknown. It's a known movie franchise within this movie's universe. Yeah,
right. It's not like Iron Man.
The characters aren't crossing over. The IP.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the IP. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's interesting.
That's my number 5.
John, what do you got at number 5?
This is where I had Star Trek Generations.
Oh, we both had it at number 5. Yeah. Very nice.
You Trump liar, you.
I do. Before we jump into talking about Will Shatner and Patrick Stewart, I want to say this particular category was very difficult to kind of piece together 5 entries for, because so much of the crossover genre in cinema is horror movies. Freddy vs. Jason is a big one, obviously, and Alien vs. Predator. And I have regretfully not, or maybe fortunately, not seen any of those movies. In any of those. Yeah, I know that I'm not missing much, but so Generations is I think a crossover. It counts, even though they're within the same universe. It's established within the timeline and the continuity. But yeah, to finally see the captain of the first show team up with the captain of the second show, it was awesome. I don't feel like they did enough together to make it super interesting for fans. They just kind of talk, and then they get in a really boring fight with Malcolm McDowell on a cliff, and it's honestly, it's kind of very anticlimactic. It's a bunch of old 70-year-old men fighting in the sun. It's just not a great team up.
You're not wrong.
But at the same time, seeing them together is like it was definitely like a dream come true for so many fans.
Yeah, I agree. That is also why I had it at number 5. Was just the incredible. It's Picard, it's Kirk, and they're together. And it's decent. It's a good watch. It's not like it's a terrible movie, but it's you're right. They could have done more with it. But
Generations is one of those films that I love as a fan, but as like an objective critic, there's so many problems with it. And I could easily see any reasonable person give this either a 10 or a 1 and be perfectly justified with that rating. It's just a weird movie where the things it does well are incredible, and there's so much it does wrong. Yeah. That it's a complicated experience, I think. Yeah. But for Trek fans, it's necessary.
All right, let's move into our number 4s. I think it's me at number 4. This is where I had Wreck-It Ralph.
Me too.
You had your Wreck-It Ralph at number 4 for you as well.
Yeah.
I really love this movie. I think we've even talked recently, I think, about the hot streak that Disney Animation is on, and just how, they just keep delivering these just really great movies one after another, and Wreck-It Ralph is in that group. The crossover, of course, has to do with different video game franchises. There are actual franchises in here
From
like
different platforms.
Pac-Man and Mario and Street Fighter and just all sorts of crossover stuff going on. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. This is great. So
I think seeing the different game properties, especially in the Power Surge Protector Grand Central Station, is just a delight. I rewatched this with my daughter not long ago, and just seeing like Bowser and Pac-Man and what's his name from Street Fighter just interacting was just so much fun.
Bison and Bison.
And Bison, that's right. Yeah.
My favorite part was I think it might be the first scene in the movie, but it's the villain support group.
Yeah.
Where
exactly.
you have I'll say this, not only for the movie, but for my list in general. I put a lot of stringencies on myself for making my list where you guys talked about Star Trek earlier. I would not have put that on my list because it's within the same universe.
That's what I wanted to stipulate, that it's a difficult category because that's not technically a crossover because it is within the same existing continuity. But I had to give some leeway because otherwise it'd be a real short list.
Which is why I won't have movies like the Avengers as a crossover because it's a culmination of everything within the same universe. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, too bad. We'll be talking about it regardless.
But it's interesting, and I totally get what you did, and I totally respect it. But it's interesting because once you have the crossover, it does exist in the same universe. So no matter what movie, it's in the same universe.
That's a good point.
So for me, it was about the crossover of two, films or TV shows or video games or those kind of things. So
I just wanted to say that for moving forward, you're going to wonder why certain movies aren't on my list.
Yes,
that's why.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Otherwise, yes, my list would be very different. But yeah, Wreck-It Ralph, that's my number 4. So John, your number 4.
So I was accidentally reading the wrong list of mine before I sorted it. I actually had Generations at 3, but so my actual number 5 we're on the subject was Wreck-It Ralph 2. Not because it's a better movie than the first. It's definitely not. But the scene with the Disney princesses needs to be its own property because that was so much fun. Seeing Ariel and Elsa and Jasmine all sort of use their powers in tandem. I think there's really only 2 scenes where they're in, but they absolutely saved this film, and it was so much fun.
Who needs saving?
Seeing them together. And sort of the comedy they're able to mine out of those princess tropes and damsels in distress was so much fun. And because the same way the first one does, they pull from the different video games and the different internet places in a way that's just so creative and interesting. Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet is not a great film, but I wanted to spend more time kind of exploring their version of the internet because it was kind of fun.
So is Vanellope officially a Disney princess now?
She is. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I don't know who gets to decide those things, but
Disney.
I think the criteria is just there's 60 Disney animated films in the Walt Disney Animation Studios canon, and if the female character is at all royal, it just de facto you become a prince. Pocahontas is a Disney princess, and she's not really by any means royalty or wears a dress, but she's the female lead in a Disney animated film. So
or an adult.
So she becomes
So what I was saying is, I don't think there is an official Disney list. Is there? Like Disney doesn't maintain some sort of. I bet they do internally. I guarantee you they do internally have those conversations. But as far as I think it would be too treacherous for them to say, okay, here's where you go to see who we've officially anointed as the Disney princesses.
Maybe a better question is Penelope a walk around face character in the parks?
That's a great question.
If she is, then yes, absolutely.
Drew was saying that there is a official Disney princess list.
Okay, then.
And that Vanellope is not on that list.
Okay. I don't know where that list is, but yeah, that's interesting. I'd have to look that up.
Okay, Aaron, you're number 3.
My number 3 is the Lego Movie.
Trump.
I wondered if you might.
I completely forgot this existed, but this would probably be near the top of my list.
Yeah. All right, what do you got at number 3, Andrew?
This is where I have Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Nice.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard a lot about this franchise.
It might be one of the funniest movies ever made.
Yeah.
Genuinely, it's It's
I've heard that.
pure genius. I mean, including Abbott Costello in the in Universal's Dark Universe is just the smartest thing ever, because it's not only in this movie they don't only meet Frankenstein, also you get Dracula and the Wolfman in this movie as well, and you get a very quick cameo at the very end from the Invisible Man. I grew up watching Abbott and Costello movies, and this is easily the funniest one, I think. I think this is, yeah. And out of all those like slapstick groups, like Laurel and Hardy, Three Stooges, Bowery Boys, I think Abbott and Costello is my favorite too. So that's why it has such a special place in my heart. It's so good.
This has been on my watch list for a while. I got to bump it to the top, because when we did this category, I was thinking, oh man, I wish I had time to watch this before Friday, because this is the type of movie I know I'm going to enjoy.
Yeah.
So thank you for the rec.
Absolutely.
All
right, so I think that means
John's number 3.
John's number 4, technically.
4. Okay, yeah.
We're listing at third, but my fourth favorite is Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Nice.
And this was sort of the ultimate crossover and culmination of the View Askew universe from Kevin Smith. So we got to see all the different characters from Chasing Amy and Dogma and Mallrats and Clerks in this weird, just zany, slapsticky road trip style comedy with Jay and Silent Bob at the center. And when it came out in 2004 or was it 2003, I would have been, at the prime age to appreciate this like stoner comedy stuff. Right around the same time that Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle and Dude, Where's My Car? It was that crop of movies that if you were like between 16 and 19, you thought this stuff was absolutely hilarious. I rewatched it recently. A lot of it does not hold up, but I think that's just because I've matured and I'm a dad now, and it seems so silly and dumb. Mm-hmm. But if you're in the mood for like silly and dumb comedies and you like Kevin Smith's style, this movie's really fun. And they do a lot of crossover stuff and great cameos from people like Mark Hamill and Matt Damon are in here, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, I think we're on to our number 2s then, and should be all of our actual number 2s now. Let's see. My number 2 is Out of Sight. This was an interesting poll because both Jackie Brown and Out of Sight came out
Michael Keaton's character.
Michael Keaton's character crosses over. It's a real weird thing. One's a Soderbergh movie, one's a Tarantino movie. And I initially had Jackie Brown on my list, but I think technically the crossover is Out of Sight because Jackie Brown came first.
I had no idea these movies were related.
Well, they're based on the characters from a book, right? The Michael Keaton character is a book character.
Yeah.
And they just used him. Yeah.
Yeah. And they used Michael Keaton in both instances. So I've seen Out of Sight, knocked it off my list of shame just recently within the last year or so, and just absolutely adored it. I can't say enough good things about Out of Sight. So there you go.
Definition of sexual chemistry right here.
Yeah. It's in the sexual tension is just, that is the textbook, this movie.
So if literary characters that does that mean like anyone in the Alex Cross universe could kind of count as a crossover?
If it's the same actor portraying them,
only if it's the same actor, not the same.
That's how I took. Yeah, okay. That to me, because Michael Keaton plays the same character in 2 different movies. To me, that is a clear crossover.
I think that's a fair stipulation.
Yeah,
just wanted to clarify that.
All right, pick. Number 2, Andrew.
I'm going to go with Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's definitely in my honorable mentions.
I completely missed this one.
This is what people would consider like the magnum opus of crossover movies, because it's one of the first where like, oh, they did it. How did they get all of the properties to agree, especially Disney and Time Warner, to agree to have characters side by side doing, more adult themed comedy, like as opposed to like, when I say adult theme, I mean like the violence and stuff, like especially that Daffy Donald Duck piano battle, where they're just like going after each other is a highlight. My first romantic crush ever as a child was Jessica Rabbit. So
that's certainly an attainable goal that has never wrecked you.
Yeah. That doesn't mess with you at all.
No.
Thanks. Appreciate it. But
That's such a classic film. I got to rewatch that one again because it is. They're doing stuff in Roger Rabbit that has not been equaled since, and this came out 30-something years ago.
yeah, recently I saw an interview with somebody. I wish I could remember who it was, but it was supposed to be them cast in Bob Hoskins' place, and I don't think it was Jim Carrey, but it was somebody like that. Where I'm like, oh, it was a straight up comedy person, and I was like, oh, interesting. Yeah,
Hoskins
exactly.
works because he's really not. He's just like
because he's the straight man.
He's just like a regular kind of dude. He's kind of.
And it was a scheduling conflict with this person who was supposed to be Bob Hoskins' character. I want to say Jim Carrey, but I don't think it was. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
So while I talk, and you can get back to us on it. Anyway, my number two. This after your criticism, Andrew, about the same universe stuff, it feels a little bit like a cheat, but not quite. I'm going to go with X-Men: Days of Future Past. I think seeing the prequel young cast mixed with the old original cast from the Michael what's it Bryan Singer not Michael Singer Michael's Bryan Singer films. That was a treat to see. James McAvoy mix it up with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen mix it up with Fassbender. And I think the icing on the cake was that the movie was actually really good. And the conceit of getting these two people together in this like time travel, we have to fix the different disparate universes was really well done. And it was super satisfying, I think, as a comic book fan. I only wish this was the last movie they did. Because I feel like what they released after were a little disappointing. Minus Logan, obviously. Logan was great, but they probably should have ended on this one.
How long do we have to wait for the X-Men to be back on screens? When is Disney going to pull the trigger?
I say 3 years.
You think 3 years?
3 more years?
I think 3 more years.
Ooh, I can't imagine. They have to show up in a post-credit scene in 2022, I would think. I don't know, man. I'm so curious about what they're planning with Fantastic Four and X-Men and how to work that in.
It is genuinely a bit perplexing that Feige's been sitting on this now because they emerged with Fox 2 years ago or so when it was like official. Yeah. And as far as we know, they don't have anything with Fantastic Four or X-Men even in production.
I love it. No. I love it because it is the exact opposite of the approach that kind of killed the DC universe. It didn't kill it, obviously. It's still going, but it made it so difficult.
The cart before the horse.
Yeah, it's just like rushing into it. It's like if there's one thing Feige doesn't, he doesn't rush into things, and he's willing to throw out, Yeah,
it might be phase 6 before we get to this stuff, and
so
we'll have to be very patient. But hopefully, I think, when we do get it, it will be well formed and well established and well hyped, and it'll work.
That's the hope. That's the hope. Like I said, I should quit doubting that Marvel knows how to play with their toys. Yeah, because they definitely do. I love this pick. It was in my honorable mentions.
It's a really fun film.
So on to our number ones. I will kick us off. I have the Avengers at number 1. I just think this is, to me, is the ultimate example of taking different properties and building them up to a place where they can cross over. And so love the Avengers. Absolutely. It's my number 1.
I get it.
Andrew, what do you got at number 1?
Real quick, it was Eddie Murphy, who was initially supposed to play Bob Hoskins' character.
Okay, that would have been different.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely.
This is where I have the Lego movie.
Okay, that's great too.
Yeah. This is just a giant conglomerate culmination of every property ever. Because technically, a lot of the licensing agreements that Lego has is not solely for, toy production. It's also because if you think about it, they have Lego Marvel shows, I guess, and they have Lego DC shows, so many things that I'm like,
it was so much fun to see Superman and Batman in this context. Will Arnett's Batman, I think, is my favorite Batman. More than Christian Bale, more than Michael Keaton, Will Arnett is just, there's something he's doing here that works so well.
First try.
I still quote that in my house once a week.
First try.
Presuming I miss 5 times previous, then
I have
Still works.
a video of me at the age of like 9, and we were on vacation and playing mini golf. And my dad is filming me, and I miss, and I bring it back, and I go, "This is my first try, everybody." And then I do that like 5 more times. And so when I saw that, I was just like, "Hey, that's me at the mini golf."
Yeah, that's perfect.
Oh, that's cute.
Mulligan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But this is one of the funniest movies ever, and there's a shocking emotional gut punch at the end that it did not see coming.
I think nobody did. There was something about this movie. Nobody had high expectations for it. We all thought it was like a shameless merchandise cash grab, and it ended up being like so much more than that. And I think because of those low expectations, everybody kind of ended up loving it.
Yeah.
And completely agree. This is a fantastic film.
Yep, I agree. I had it at number 3. It is one of the greats. John, what do you got at number 1?
As usual, I'll just change out the poster in my room to indicate my choice. This time it's Avengers End Game. I think certainly Avengers 2012 sort of gets the credit for establishing that we can do the big team-up movie and do it well. But Endgame for me is the culmination of the multiple team-up movies. Like, what if we do a team-up movie of the team-up movies? And it's just nothing will ever parallel that portal scene at the end of this movie where Chris Evans finally says Avengers Assemble. I still get goosebumps even though I've seen the scene 50 times. I'm still like, oh my God, this is why I love cinema. Is big moments that just make your skin crawl. It was awesome.
Honestly, I think Captain America picking up Mjolnir might, like, in 20 years, people are going to look back and say that is one of the most memorable moments in cinematic history. Yeah, no,
if AFI ever updates their list, we'll see some of these. Yeah, we'll see it on there.
Yeah,
for sure.
I love the optimism that people will know what cinema is in 20 years.
20,000 years of this and 7 more to go.
That's right.
Have a good time while we're here.
There you go. There's our top 5s. Honorable mentions. Anybody care to throw any out?
I only had one because of my stringent rules that I put on myself.
Sure.
I'm going to go with a 1963 King Kong versus Godzilla.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
The new one is technically within the same universe. That's why I can't count it, or otherwise, But that was an actual, Toho crossover with, I think it was, who did the original King Kong? Was it?
Don't know.
RKO,
I think.
RKO did. Yeah, I actually again, I have the movie poster, so I actually know about that one pretty well.
Yeah. Oh, didn't I think it was? No, never mind. I'm lying.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I got to check that one out. The poster alone right here on the screen is really compelling to me.
It's okay.
That's great. I love old movie posters so much.
You have to appreciate that old style of, guys in costume kaiju movies.
The original Godzilla and the original Kong are like all-time classics for me. They from 33 and 55, like they hold up. They're fantastic.
54 was Godzilla, that's right. But because
my only honorable mention we haven't talked about yet is Hotel Transylvania, the Adam Sandler animated film. I think it's not like a fantastic movie. My daughter really enjoys it, but I just seeing like the Invisible Man and Frankenstein and Dracula all kind of just having fun and joking around in a different animated context is kind of fun. Yeah. Not a great film, but it's good.
Yeah. I would mention Space Jam, the original. It's certainly not a great movie, but it's, definitely people do love it. There's a lot of different IPs in that one.
I thought it was just Looney Tunes.
No, I think there's other IPs that come into the original Space Jam. I'll look it up here in a little bit. But Ready Player One.
I can't remember. So
yeah, Ready Player One.
Don't count on me. Oh yeah, Ready Player One's the big one. Yeah.
Ready Player One, certainly, seeing the Iron Giant in there and all that kind of fun stuff. This one's a little bit of a stretch, especially if you're considering the same universe thing, but I had to mention Split because that initial moment felt very much like a crossover to me. And so I wanted to mention that.
That's more sneaky sequel as opposed to crossover.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I agree.
Sequel. I like that.
Sneaky sequel. Surprise.
Sneakquel, if you will.
Sneakquel. Oh,
let's not.
I don't like the way that word sounds.
Let's not do that.
That doesn't sound good.
So Rise of the Guardians, I thought I'd also mention as well, which is all the different holiday characters
that's right.
together.
I was thinking Guardians of the Pool.
I've never heard. What is Rise of the Guardians? I've never heard of this.
It's kind of fun.
Should I know about this? Is this a property that I missed?
Yeah, I mean,
it's
it sounds
DreamWorks,
like
isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It was 2012. It was DreamWorks, and it's basically like Jack Frost, the
Tooth Fairy,
Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy. Yeah, they all have.
It's a big team up
together.
movie like the Avengers, except
exactly.
Well, that sounds. I've never heard of that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, Rise.
It's a fun enough movie.
Yeah,
I think your kids would really like it.
I'll watch anything. It doesn't matter. It's fine.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on to our buried treasure for the week. What's that one thing in any area of pop culture you want to make sure people know about? John, you're the guest, so you'll go last. Andrew, why don't you kick us off? What do you got?
Well, Aaron, we're going to be going all the way back to the year 1995. It was the year that had the Oklahoma City bombing. Michael Jordan returned to the NBA, and that was after he did Space Jam, obviously. eBay launched. I turned 9 years old, and a little ditty of a movie came out called Before Sunrise.
Nice.
Well, it's a good one.
Yeah. What a interesting movie. Then I get to knock off my list of shame. I like Richard Linklater enough. I mean, he's a really good director, and I think that he has a very unique way of telling stories. I love the way this movie is done, because at the beginning of this movie you have Ethan Hawke talking on the train, and he's like, I want to do a National Geographic type show where it's just 24 hours following just a single person around. And in a kind of meta way, that's what this movie does. It's a very interesting romance movie in the sense I think it might be one of the most natural and authentic love stories that I've ever seen. Because
have you seen the 2 sequels yet?
Not yet. They are coming up later in my list.
I think they're even better, in my opinion.
Really? Well,
especially in that like authenticity, like to get at like the ethos of what a relationship is and what it feels like. These movies, I think, tap that better than anybody.
Well, I think that this movie then set a perfect, groundwork for that possible, because I do want to see the sequels. But a lot of the this was, we're talking about last week. We're talking about like West Side Story, the love at first sight, that kind of thing. I'm like, oh, that just doesn't ever feel natural. This isn't really love at first sight. It's, yes, they kind of fall in love on the first day, but it's more than just a first sight. There's a chemistry that naturally, grows from these two people just talking and just walking around. It's unlike anything I'd seen before, and it's nothing at all like what I expected. I expected, like, your run-of-the-mill rom-coms, but it's not. It's so genuine. I think that's the best tagline word I could have for this. It is one of the most genuine love stories I've ever seen. Great movie.
It is. That whole trilogy is incredible, and it works so much better for me than the Boyhood thing, which is a fine movie, but like the gimmick of Boyhood kind of dominates it in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
With the Before movies, you almost don't even care about the gimmick. The gimmick of the fact that it's the same people in these movies are actually made however many years apart. You don't even really think about it because the movies are so good and they just work so well. So yeah, I really do enjoy these movies. That's a great one. Before Sunrise is available if you're subscribed to Showtime. Should be on the Showtime app. It is also available to rent otherwise.
Nice.
Andrew, buried. I was going to say, Aaron, I appreciate you having the Just Watch app open at all times. So anytime we name drop, you can just give us the platform it's available.
It's one of those things that I think as a podcast listener,
that's really helpful.
That is really helpful. Is like, tell me where I can watch this thing. So
that was not sarcastic. That was genuine.
Thanks.
Compliment. Thank you.
I'm trying to do better at that.
So what do you got for your buried treasure?
Something you can't watch anywhere.
You gotta see this in person
because it's not out yet.
as is the case this time of year, it is often difficult. Although I do think this is coming to to be able to rent pretty quickly. But it is a Japanese film called Drive My Car. This is a 3-hour movie. I will start there just so you know what you're in for.
It's fine.
It will be competing for Best International Film this year. It has been nominated from other bodies, including the Critics' Choice as Best International or non-English film or whatever the category is called in each thing. This is a 3-hour movie, and its strength is in the 3 hours. Its strength is in it really gives you the time to understand the characters, what they're going through, what's happening here. This is about, somebody who, I don't think this is spoilery to say, but I'll just say the setup for this character lasts 40 minutes, and then the opening credits roll after 40 minutes.
Wow.
It's like
that's a lot.
It's kind of like the credits pop up and you're like, wait, what? It's like we've already been in here for 40 minutes. But this is a really interesting film, and I think if you don't have the patience to make, I guess what I say is make sure you're in the right place to watch this movie. You're in a place where you just want to sit down with something that's going to be contemplative, about human nature. It's going to be interesting. Don't sit down for this if you're in the mood for something, quick, high octane, that kind of thing.
I think there needs to be some type of resource, maybe attached to a service like Just Watch, that explicitly tells you, please be in this mood before you watch.
Yes.
Please set aside this sort of attention span, because that would be helpful to know sometimes. Because I'll put on a movie and be like, I'm not in the mood for this kind of thing right now. And I know I'm not going to appreciate it if I am distracted or if I'm tired or if I'm hungry. Like sometimes you need to really be focused up for a movie that's contemplative, like you said. So I appreciate that heads up.
It's contemplative, and you have to, if you're English speaking, you also have to focus because it's, it's all subtitled, as well. So you'll definitely be reading. You'll definitely be reading the subtitles.
Is there a comparable American or English movie that you could say this is this type or style of movie you can expect?
That is a great question. I should have an answer to that question. It didn't escape me that the Before Sunrise and the Before movies kind of feels a little like this, where it's just authentic human relationship and story.
The sort of the slow burn, lean
it's
forward type of experience.
Yeah, it's definitely slow burn, lean forward. And if you don't connect to the characters, if you don't care about what they're going through, this is going to feel like it's just dragging because it really is about, buying into this world, these relationships, these characters.
3 hour first cow, ladies and gentlemen.
It's not quite that. But I loved First Cow, so, but no, it's not that. It is not that. Drive My Car, I don't think is available anywhere yet, but hopefully will be soon. All right, John, what do you got?
My best ever buried treasure, hello, is a new podcast from my friend Christopher Allen Maloney called Hooked, a deep dive into the most bangarang movie ever made. I think it's going to be an 8-part series. 4 episodes are released so far. He's interviewing cast members, child actors that were on the set, people that played the pirates, the mermaids, script writers been interviewed. He's pulling clips and other interviews done, when it was released in the 90s. And I think if you're a fan of Hook, or even if you are like me and you really like it, but have never really taken a second look to go back and appreciate it, this is such an interesting podcast. We get to hear all of the history, all of the what ifs, who could have been cast for some of these roles, and how Steven Spielberg was as a director, coming off some of his biggest projects and figuring out what he wanted to do with his career going into the 90s. Hook is such a fun and different take on the Peter Pan story. And Christopher does such an interesting job of framing this in a really fun. If you like crime serial podcasts, it feels like that, but for a movie. Let's get under the covers and peel back the layers and figure out the real history and all the different drama and gossip and details behind Robin Williams and Julia Roberts and Dustin Hoffman and Steven Spielberg on the same set at the same time in like one of the most hyped movies of the year. So it's 30 minutes episodes. They're real bingeable if you got a long commute like me. So big recommend for that. You can get it wherever podcasts are sold.
Yeah. I met Dante Bosco once.
Oh,
guy who plays Rufio.
That's great. Yeah.
Super
Was he
cool
nice?
Guy. Super cool guy. Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. Well, that is Hooked with an exclamation point. You can search for that on podcast platforms.
No, Aaron. That's not how you say it.
Oh, I'm sorry. How do you say it, Andrew?
Hooked!
Okay.
There you go. Also, real quick, I haven't watched it yet, but I do want to remind everyone, the MacGruber TV show is now out on Peacock, and I am very excited to watch it because MacGruber is one of my favorite underseen, underappreciated comedies of the 2010s.
It's great.
And it is. I can't believe they're back after 12 years, and they got money to do a show for a movie that completely flopped. Yeah, I can't believe it exists, but I'm so excited to check it out.
It might be. I think Wayne's World was the most successful SNL original property.
Yeah,
I think MacGruber might be now. After this, it might be up there.
It depends on how you define success, I suppose. But yeah,
the fact that they're going back to this. Yeah, when we talk about what movies should be remade or what should get sequels, sometimes it's the movies that no one saw. Sometimes it's the movies that did mediocre or did poorly that need or deserve a second look.
Yeah. Well, there you go. We did it, guys. We managed to accomplish a podcast. Well done to all involved.
I can't believe this was that long of a podcast, considering you said it was going to be shorter.
Well,
that's my fault.
John has mentioned often that when he's on, we tend to go long. He seems to think that that's because he talks a lot. I think it's because we just have a good time together. So that's why I
just have opinions on everything. I was a YouTuber for 10 years. I always want my voice heard. So
yes, I'm with you. We're all with you. So yes, we managed to do a podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Sif Pop is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out again today.
Well, thank you, buddy.
Big thanks to producer Phil for producing the audio and video show.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks to Drew for putting together some visuals for the video show.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
And thank you to John Paula for hanging out with us again. Always good to see your beautiful face. What do you want? Anywhere you want to send people? Anything you want to tell them about?
Nah, I don't really care. Have a happy holiday. Have a Merry Christmas. And I'll see you guys back in January and more immediately for the SIF spoil in 3 minutes.
Yes, exactly. Well, we appreciate you being here. We also appreciate our SIF Pop members. And if you're interested in that, that's all at Patreon. Patreon.com/SiftPop. Support starts at $3 a month. And you can check all that information there. Lots of ways to connect with us. Feel free to leave a comment, a rating, or a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. You can also email feedback@sifpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too, so let them know about it and that listening is much easier than casting an intricate spell with Peter Parker around. We will be back next week with a little film called Matrix 4.
I haven't heard about that
so
one.
We'll talk about all that then.
Weird indie film, I bet.
Bye.
All right. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. I see Alex has joined us. Alex, good to have you around.
And props to Sonic Screwdriver, old fan of mine from my YouTube days, giving us the full rundown on the Disney princess situation.
Sonic Screwdriver's my brother. Did you know that? That's my brother's.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh, then I'm mixing his name up with somebody else. Then never mind.
Yeah, he worked at Disney, so he does have the lowdown.
Oh, I had a YouTube fan. I think it was Sonic Fan was his name, and I see Sonic and my brain shuts off.
Yeah.
He was a patron of mine and went to a bunch of my live shows.
Sonic Screwdriver is a very well-known proprietary name that can be used as a username.
Yeah.
If anybody has ever seen Doctor Who, we got Mary and Ruby. Like we said hello, Alex. Drew always coming through. Evan and Mark. Nice. Thanks, guys.
So the official princesses are Snow White, Cinderella, Aurora, Jasmine, Belle, Ariel, Mulan, Pocahontas, Merida, Rapunzel, Tiana, Moana, Elsa, and Anna.
And Anna. Ooh, that's interesting. She has a +1.
Yeah, the only princess with a +1.
You get 2 in the same movie. That's pretty good.
And I think I understand what he's saying. He's saying it's a brand, not like an official list, but they have the princess brand. And so they choose very specifically what princesses go into that brand. Yeah. That makes sense. All right. We're going to go and record some spoilers, guys. Thank you for joining with us, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Thanks for watching.